Look around you today. We're living in an era of absolute constant distraction. We're battling anxiety, we're overwhelmed by social media, and we are on this relentless, exhausting pursuit of success. Yet, if we're being honest, so many of us feel fundamentally lost. Well, welcome to this explainer, because today we are unlocking an ancient blueprint designed to cure this very modern crisis of meaning. 2.5 millennia ago, one of history's greatest minds actually saw this coming, and he didn't just offer some quick, superficial fix. He offered a rigorous, incredibly transformative framework for exactly how to live.
So let's just jump right in and start with a truly profound question. I want you to pause and really think about this for a second. What is the ultimate purpose of human life? It's the kind of heavy, massive question that keeps us staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., right? And it was exactly this burning mystery that drove our subject today to completely decode the mechanics of human happiness, morality, and society.
Let's look at the sheer epic sweep of Aristotle's life. He was born in 384 BCE in a small coastal city called Stagira. By the time he was 17, he was sent to Athens to study under the absolute legend himself, Plato. Aristotle spent nearly 2 decades at Plato's academy, just absorbing everything like a sponge. And then the timeline gets even more unbelievable. In 343 BCE, he gets summoned by the king of Macedon to personally tutor his teenage son. That boy, he would soon grow up to be Alexander the Great. So, after literally shaping the mind of a world conqueror, Aristotle returns to Athens, founds his own legendary school called the Lyceum, and basically builds what many consider the very first great library of antiquity.
Over time, he became known to history simply as the philosopher. But here's the fascinating part. He actually rebelled against his mentor's teachings. Where Plato was always looking up at this abstract, perfect world of forms, Aristotle was the ultimate grounded realist. He believed that to truly understand reality, we have to get our hands dirty. We have to meticulously observe the physical, chaotic world right in front of us. He didn't want to know what a good life looked like in some unreachable theory. He wanted to know how a real, flawed, flesh-and-blood human being, like you or me, could actually achieve it in practice. That takes us into Section 1, Decoding Reality, and his concept of the 4 causes. This is his brilliant framework for reality itself, because Aristotle said, to understand literally anything in the universe, whether it's a star in the sky, a political system, or your own life, you have to understand exactly why it exists. To grasp this, just imagine you're walking through a park and you come across a massive bronze statue of a historical leader. According to his map of reality, you intuitively ask 4 things to understand what you're looking at. First, the material cause. What is it actually made of? Well, it's made of bronze. Second, the formal cause. What's its structure or essence? It's shaped to look like a president. Third, the efficient cause. Who or what made it? The sculptor who cast the metal. But it is this 4th one that is the absolute master key to everything Aristotle believed. The final cause. The telos. What is its ultimate purpose? The statue exists to honor the president. And here's the kicker. Aristotle argued that absolutely everything in the universe has a final cause.
Which leads us to Section 2, the blueprint of the soul and the pursuit of Eudaimonia. Because if even a simple statue has a final cause, a telos, it forces us to confront the ultimate mystery. What is the final cause of a human being? What is the specific purpose that you and I are built for?
Now, his answer to this was not just some fleeting feeling of happiness. It's not that quick dopamine hit you get from buying a new phone, getting a bunch of likes on social media, or eating a huge meal. His answer was a concept called eudaimonia. It roughly translates to well-being, or more accurately, human flourishing. And eudaimonia isn't the passive state of mind that you just sit around and feel. It is a lifelong, active, relentless pursuit of absolute excellence. It's about fully realizing your highest potential.
So how do we actually get there? Aristotle used something called the function argument. He said, look, we share basic biological nutrition and growth with plants. Okay, so that can't be our special purpose. We share basic perception and movement with animals, also not our unique purpose. So what is distinctively, undeniably human? It's our reason. Therefore, the human function, our ultimate cosmic job description, is the excellent exercise of our intellect and our practical reason. If you want to genuinely flourish, you can't just exist. You have to use your unique capacity to think, and you have to do it exceptionally well.
But of course, it's never that easy, is it? Which brings us to Section 3, Mastering the Appetites Through Virtues and the Golden Mean. Because simply knowing what is rational isn't enough to make us flourish. Sure, we have a rational mind, but we also have these wild, untamed appetites, emotions, and desires raging inside of us.
He put a name to a deeply frustrating human condition that I guarantee you experienced. He called it akrasia. It translates roughly to a weakness of will, or a total lack of self-mastery. It happens when your rational brain knows exactly what the right thing to do is, but you go ahead and do the exact opposite anyway.
It is the absolute classic dilemma. You make a firm, conscious decision that you are going to eat healthy, but then you find yourself eating the entire slice of chocolate cake anyway. You set an alarm for 5 a.m. to work out, and what do? You hit snooze. You promise to put your phone away to focus on your work, but 10 minutes later, you're mindlessly scrolling. Akrasia is how we actively sabotage our own success. It's that devastating gap between knowing what is good for us and actually doing what is good for us.
To fight back against this internal sabotage, Aristotle gives us a toolkit. He laid out 4 cardinal virtues as an urgent, highly practical system for achieving total self-mastery. First, prudence, or practical wisdom, which is the ability to actually make the right judgments in the heat of the moment. Second, temperance, self-control and moderation over our primal desires. Third, courage, the ability to face down our fears. And fourth, justice, recognizing what's good for the community and treating people fairly. He argued that if you can master these 4, you conquer akrasia. You conquer yourself.
But here is where he draws a really important line in the sand about how we actually build these virtues. He split them into intellectual virtues and moral virtues. Intellectual virtues like curiosity and critical thinking, well, you can teach those in a classroom. You can read a book to learn them. But moral virtues, you cannot read a book to suddenly become courageous. You can't watch a video to magically gain temperance. Aristotle insisted that moral virtue is a hard-earned skill, acquired only through relentless daily practice. Just like you can't learn to play the piano just by staring at the sheet music, you can't become a good, disciplined person without repeatedly doing good, disciplined actions.
And how do you know what the right action even is? Enter the golden mean. Aristotle said that living virtuously is basically a high-stakes tightrope walk. True courage, for instance, isn't the complete absence of fear, that's just blind recklessness. Nor is it cowardice. True courage is the perfect, moderated balance point right in the middle. Every virtue is always the exact middle ground between doing too little and doing too much.
Moving into section 4, we look at society and state, the political animal. Because here's the reality. This individual pursuit of excellence, this delicate tightrope walk of virtue, you can't do it alone. It cannot happen in isolation. And that brings us to his monumental, world-changing views on human society.
He famously declared man is by nature a political animal. By this, he meant that human beings are absolutely not meant to wander the earth alone. In fact, he chillingly put it that a human being completely isolated from society is either a wild beast or a god. We are instinctively, biologically driven to form communities, not just so we don't starve, but so we can push each other to reach our absolute highest potential.
He traced the natural evolution of how we connect. It starts small, with the basic family unit, the oikos, just to meet our daily biological needs and survive. But then families band together to form a village, the komi, which allows for cooperation, trade, and a division of labor. And finally, those villages scale up and merge to create the city-state, the polis, which is large enough and complex enough to achieve total self-sufficiency.
And this is where his political philosophy becomes so incredibly inspiring. He argued that the ultimate goal of society, the reason the state even exists, isn't just basic economic survival. It's not just about paying taxes and keeping the roads paved. The state exists to actively enable its citizens to live a deeply fulfilling eudaimonic life. The state is fundamentally a moral institution. And if a society isn't helping its people flourish, it is completely failing its ultimate purpose.
Because the state is so critical to our flourishing, he obsessively analyzed over 150 different constitutions to map out the forms of government. As you can see here, he split them up based on who is ruling and, more importantly, who they are ruling for. He differentiated the correct constitutions that serve the common good from the deviant ones that are hijacked by selfish interests. If one person rules for everyone, it's a kingship. If they rule for themselves, it's a tyranny. If a few rule for the good of all, it's an aristocracy, but if they just rule for the rich, it's an oligarchy. And if the many rule for the common good, he called that a polity. But, and this might surprise you, if the many rule only for the selfish interests of the majority at the expense of the minority, he viewed that as a deviant, corrupt form, which he called democracy.
Now, we have to pause here and impartially look at the historical context. Aristotle's political framework was deeply, deeply rooted in the ancient world.
His vision of a citizen was someone who had the wealth, the leisure time, and the education to actively participate in ruling. Consequently, he constructed a highly exclusive, elitist citizenship that explicitly denied political rights to women, to manual laborers, and to the enslaved, whom he shockingly viewed as natural property. We look back at this today and clearly see the stark, severe limitations of his era's worldview, but we have to understand it because it is the foundation of how he structured his ideal society.
Yet, even with those severe historical limitations, his foundational ideas on justice are literally still echoing in our modern courtrooms today. He defined particular justice as the correct distribution of just deserts, basically giving every single person exactly what is due to them, proportionate to their merit. And he said this requires objective, careful deliberation by an educated judge. This brilliant concept effectively gave us the enduring symbol we still use all over the world, the blindfolded judge, perfectly balancing the scales of justice, weighing the evidence completely free from emotional bias.
Which brings us to our final section, the enduring legacy and excellence as a habit. When we pull all of these philosophical threads together, we can see exactly how this ancient system forms a cohesive, remarkably powerful guide to surviving and thriving in the modern world. From discovering our ultimate purpose, to conquering our chaotic impulses, to building communities that actually elevate us.
And he leaves us with this ultimate, incredibly empowering truth. Human excellence is not an accident of birth. It's not a genetic lottery ticket. It is not something you are just naturally granted. It is a deliberate, relentless, daily habit that you have to choose to forge. You become brave by doing brave things. You become disciplined by practicing discipline. You and you alone are the architect of your own character. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Look closely at your own life right now. Ask yourself, what is your final cause? What is your ultimate purpose? And more importantly, what specific daily habits are you building right now, today, to actually reach it? Think about it, and keep striving for that golden mean.